I'm Summer Falgiano, and you're tuned in to Badasses in Tech. This week, we're joined by Colin Bender, creator of the Vulnerability Challenge. He's here to explain his journey into vulnerability, along with the benefits of opening up at work.
Growing up, like elementary school, high school, everything was pretty okay. I mean, I was like every other kid trying to fit in, find my way in high school. After high school, going to university, I was completely lost. Really was not prepared for the quote unquote real world. And I went through extremely really bad breakup that sent me in a kind of a whirlwind. And, I started kind of partying and I guess masking my insecurities with partying each day, each weekend kind of thing. And yeah, it was a lot like some tough relationships and lots of ups and downs of that kind of lifestyle. University was a challenge, but eventually I kind of started to find myself in yoga. And so yoga, I was searching for ways to kind of heal that wasn't just through drinking and self-medicating. Really. The vices, yeah. So yoga was kind of the first thing that came to mind, and I had some close friends that I would open up to and share some of my struggles with, just feeling really insecure, I think, but usually it was women that I was able to kind of open up to, and I felt more comfortable opening up to them. But over time, I started getting a little bit more into yoga and then gradually into personal development. And so I started going to different personal development events. And one of them led to this event called Masters of the Universe Summit. And it's put on by this guy named Mark Groves, who has a really kind of a huge following on Instagram. And I was really inspired by him, and I would follow his messages and his post every day, and I'd feel like I'm not alone and I could learn from his post. And then I went there and I was super inspired and felt open, and I was like, all the people there were so warm, and I kind of felt like I kind of found my people and I found my place. And so this was just over 3 years ago when I went to that event. And when I left that event, I shared my kind of first vulnerable post. And it was about my ex-girlfriend's daughter, who I had a really close relationship with. And after we broke up, we were still close. And there was some people in my social circle kind of wondering why I'm still hanging out with my ex-girlfriend's daughter when we're no longer in a relationship. So I decided to address that on social media. And I started to share it because she's, I'm a father figure to her. I had this beautiful connection with her because, there was just so many reasons. And I just shared this open, warm post about how much I loved her, or I love her, I still love her. And that received a huge response of likes and loves and comments. And so the next day I shared another post about my story and about how my identity has changed over the years and how I was associated with being kind of a preppy. And then I got into kind of grunge music and then punk rock music. And then I was metrosexual. And then I decided I was a yogi or / businessman. And I didn't really know, and all these different identities. And I shared a post about that. And same thing, a huge response from my friends and people. So from there, I decided what I was going to do was called the Vulnerability Challenge. And for 30, I just kind of came up with that. And for 30 days, I was going to share my pain, shame, fears, love, joy. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so I created a following of people that were following it every single day and started to reach out to me. And it was really resonating with them. And there was strangers that wanted to talk to me and meet me for coffee and talk to and share some of the experiences that they had with anxiety and feeling insecure and things that they related to and resonated with. And so, it was just I kind of felt like it was bigger than me.
Yeah.
So I decided to start a site and a Instagram profile on Facebook and encourage other people to participate. And there was a line between that. There was people nearby that were participating, and then people all over the world.
That's amazing.
all over the US, Canada, England, Brazil, all these different countries that are doing the vulnerability challenge. So I could go on. There's definitely, I could continue the story, but if you, I want to let you.
No, I think it's a really important topic. And, I think it's very brave of you to go online and share those feelings. I feel like, and maybe it's just me. I mean, I'm a woman. I live in San Francisco, and I feel like an environment where it's business all day long, and you there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, and you cannot show any emotion, or if you do, it's, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing, or she doesn't know, she's not confident, or oh, she's too wound up with something else to be fully present and fully here. I guess I'm talking more from like a work setting, right? So I think it's an important topic to shed light on, and it's great to hear, and I'm sure you were very surprised with the amount of response that you got. So is there any, could you share a little bit more about that? What were some of the, I guess, common comments that people were saying?
Yeah, I mean, it was all really supportive. And just people relating to the feelings. Like, it was just a really, a feeling of that I'm not alone, that other people share that too. Because I know when we're in like dark spaces or not feeling good, it's easy to feel isolated and feel like we are the only ones feeling that way. So, I shared posts about me being on medication for anxiety because that was something I had to do. And when I shared that post, I remember like pressing click and then like tears rolling down my eyes as I released that to the world. And, but yeah, it was like, there was no negative response. Right. It was all positive. And I mean, perhaps there was people thinking it in the background, but they weren't gonna, I think the only thing is like some people might have thought it was a bit too much for them, and they maybe stopped following me or something because they didn't want to, but that was okay. I noticed my friends changed a lot, actually. Like, I attracted certain people too.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what do you think, once you kind of put yourself out there, what were some of the benefits that you experienced in your life? You mentioned your friends kind of maybe switched their attitude or maybe kind of saw you in a different way. What would you say are some other benefits to just kind of, not worrying so much about what everyone else thinks and just being you and putting yourself out there?
Yeah, I mean, if I think back when I was first doing it, I felt really this sense of liberation, of freedom, and I felt like connected to everyone, including like the Starbucks baristas, and like, I just had this sense of connection to people that I hadn't felt in a long time. And but yeah, I kind of like, and this was like maybe a slow process that started before that, when I started getting more into yoga and trying to be a little more aware. Some of my old friends were kind of drifting where it was just party before, right? So, but as I did the vulnerability challenge, yeah, I think I just started attracting people that really supported me and really led me to my life. And like full circle, like moment, so that event I went to called Masters of the Universe last summer, so it would have been 2 years after I first went to it, he invited me to come speak at it. So it was in front of like 200 people. I went up and shared my story and shared the vulnerability challenge and how that came to be, and received a standing ovation. And like, it was like my biggest fear. Like, when I was in university, I would like do everything I could possibly think of to get out of public speaking. Right. It would feel like I was like having an outer body experience when I had to go up and talk in front of people. So for me to go do that, I felt like I won the Super Bowl. And like, so that was, and to continue that theme, my now partner, who I just had a baby with.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. She'd followed Mark Groves, and we had went to high school together, but we hadn't seen each other in 15 years. I live on Vancouver Island. She was living in Minnesota at the time. And she reached out to me saying, was curious about what I was doing and speaking on the stage, and told me that she was moving home uh, soon and wanted to kind of connect with like-minded people and people that are into personal development.
Yeah.
So we got chatting on the phone, and when she moved back, we hung out, and within a week of us getting together, we got pregnant. So
there you go. So being vulnerable, really, it just lends all these different benefits: love,
yeah.
family, career, success. That's awesome. I think it's, I really do. So if they're, I'm thinking about our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
If there are some that, maybe are struggling with similar experiences or similar feelings, can you give them some tips and advice on how to kind of release that anxiousness and really tap into their vulnerability?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely try. I mean, I think everybody's different. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think sharing online and social, I mean, a lot of people did it, but I don't think it's for everyone. Um, and I would definitely recommend Brene Brown. I'm sure you've heard of Brene Brown and her books, Daring Greatly,
Okay.
and the power of vulnerability, TED Talk. But I think that definitely need to reach out to somebody. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you're struggling with any kind of mental illness, or uh, even if it's not even quote unquote a mental illness, because I don't really like that negative connotation, but if it's anxiety or depression, and I think all of
Yeah.
us do from time to time,
Stress.
stress,
Yeah.
you got to reach out to somebody that's kind of close to you that you can trust. That because if I did learn one thing, we can overshare. So I wouldn't want to. I would never recommend people kind of share their open wounds on
I
social
see.
media or with anybody. Those kind of stories are best to share with people that you trust and are close to you. And if you can't think of somebody that has that you really trust enough to share your shame stories with,
Mm-hmm.
um, then there's no shame in going to see like a counselor
Mm-hmm.
or a coach or somebody that's professional to hold space with you, for you, or any sort of support group. I definitely think it's yeah, there's the stigma around any of that's BS.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you totally.
And
And
yoga, a couple other things to get in touch
yeah.
with yourself. Yoga, if you want to go to yoga, or meditation, getting in touch with yourself, going out in nature. I mean, those are anything to kind of get yourself a little more quiet,
Yeah.
and try to just listen to yourself, either focus on yourself breathing or going to a yoga class, ways to kind of get more present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying. It's funny you mentioned meditation. I probably within the past 2 weeks have been really trying to kind of implement that practice, and I realize now why they call it a practice. I
Mm.
just sit there and I feel like a minute has passed and it's maybe 10 seconds. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think I can, like, I can't get my thoughts. They're just all over the place.
Yeah, it is a challenge, and especially in this day and age with so much input.
Yeah. Help me. What is your method to meditate?
Um, yeah, for a while I did this meditation called transcendental meditation,
Okay.
which is I found it easier than most because it was just more about letting go. But you need to, like, it costs a lot of money to learn that. It's like this
Okay.
really expensive thing to learn.
I'll do some Googling, see what I can like
Yeah,
piece
lots
together.
of celebrities do it. But right now, I just kind of like, I just sit still and just, even if I'm just sitting still for 20 minutes, I don't get too concerned about the thoughts.
Okay.
I just focus on my breath. I don't really, and if thoughts come in, I just let them pass.
Hmm.
Try not to control it too much.
Mm-hmm.
We can just even just sit silently for 20 minutes and not grab our phone, or not uh, put on the TV, or just kind of even just sit.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful, I think.
Yeah. And I know you recently started, or you joined a company fairly recently. Um, what are your thoughts on, or what's your experiences rather, on bringing this vulnerability and kind of having that be what you're known for? How has that benefited you in the workplace?
Well, I think it's the reason I got this job. So yeah, previously I was working in a sales job for like 9 years with a more traditional sales company, large company, and it served me well for quite a while. But the past few years, I was looking for a way out. Um, and then as I was doing this work online and stuff, I was actually just happened to be on the beach one day, and and a friend walked by, and I told him he told me, he's like, oh, I see you everywhere on social media.
Oh my gosh.
And I told him that I was, considering a job change. And he told me about this company that he worked for the last 8 years called Thought Exchange. And so I got an interview with them, and it was just like a match made in heaven, because we actually talk about, like, in the training package, it's like Brene Brown and the vulnerability. It's like part of like their training. And then we actually so part of Thought Exchange is we have every Friday we have like these Zoom calls with the entire sales tech team, and we go around the horn and we share what's going on for us, both personally and professionally. So it's very transparent, vulnerable organization. And during the interview process, they liked my sales experience, but they were way more excited about the vulnerability challenge that I created that movement. So I think not only did it be opening up, and it's not just the vulnerability challenge, but the fact that I was able to open up and express myself, not only attracted my partner, now I have a baby, and this job where I feel super blessed to be part of this, like, the startup that's like doing some amazing things in the world, and it just feels like a match made in heaven. So I'm I'm excited to get out of my shell.
There you go. Yeah, it sounds like things are, that definitely sounds like a perfect match. I'd love to kind of, you mentioned there's that meeting, everyone goes around the horn and really shares their most vulnerable moments. I think that's really important, especially when you're collaborating and working with these people, and it's really all about, like, yes, you want to get something done, but it's really, I find that it's more important and easier to get something done with a team that you know well, on a personal and professional level. But sometimes it's not always that easy to, and maybe I'm making it a big deal, but I couldn't imagine sitting and saying, okay, let's get vulnerable today. So for those people who want to get vulnerable and maybe aren't in an environment that they feel comfortable to be vulnerable, what would you say? What's your advice for them to connect with the people that are in their lives?
Yeah. I mean, even in that group that we have, people are not sharing everything. Because it is kind of a large group, and it's not like we're all super tight. We work in like pods of like 4 people, and we're a lot tighter.
Yeah.
But we do have a company coach that we can lean on too. So that's where I get really vulnerable. But if you don't have that kind of environment and you want to be vulnerable, I think the way to do it would be to start sharing just some small things, like maybe not sharing everything, because you don't want to. Sometimes I've definitely done it. I've overshared many times going through this process where I felt like, oh shit. I think Brene Brown calls it a vulnerability hangover.
Right.
Where like I feel like I overshare, and I like, oh, why did I say?
And then you're like, oh, what are they thinking? Like,
I regretted that. But I mean, how do you know when you overshare? Like, how do you know where that boundary is? You kind of cross it a couple of times before you realize where it is. So I think that if you even feel like you could perhaps open up to somebody, you can start sharing a few things, see how they respond, and then go from there. Because I think that you'll be able to tell if they're somebody that's safe to open up to, based on their reaction, whether if they're compassionate, empathetic, if they're really trying to relate with you and not try to fix you, because you don't. That's what we don't want to do if people are sharing their pain, and we don't want to try to fix them and feel like there's something wrong with them. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I feel like I feel like I'm one of those people that if somebody comes to me with, something that they're battling with, or if they have a thought that they just can't quite figure out, my instinct is, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Like, I want to help them. But to your point, it's probably more important and probably more what they want to hear is just for me to listen, just to kind of let them
go. Yeah, it's hard to do. But yeah, I think that's probably the best approach in most cases, unless they ask specifically for help, I think.
Yeah.
Depending on the relationship too. There's nothing black and white, but yeah.
Right. Especially about feelings. It can get very gray when you're dealing with feelings and emotions. So, well, Colin, this has been great, and I, like I said before, I think, keep it up, keep praising everything there is about being vulnerable. You mentioned earlier you have this brand new baby. How are you gonna commit yourself, just knowing that your time is a lot limited, right? I could only imagine your time is a lot more limited. Mm-hmm. So, how are you going to commit yourself to staying vulnerable in the middle of all these life changes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think this job that I have now, we're constantly getting pushed and challenged to like get out of our comfort zone. So I think anytime that we're facing something that's really unknown and we're doing it anyway, that's putting ourselves in a vulnerable situation. So I think that we're always vulnerable every day, and this job's definitely pushing me. Having a fairly new relationship with a new baby and diving deep into love and having those tough conversations, like continually communicating with my partner, is something that I am going to continue to do, because that's how I have a healthy relationship. So that's the kind of the work I'm doing now. The Vulnerability Challenge has been going for 3 years, and I feel like the chapter is kind of closing a bit for me at this time. I still have passion about it. It just isn't a number one priority. Right. That I have a new baby, a job that's very demanding. As I don't know, a lot of these listeners may work for startups, and it's pretty it's exciting, but it's also quite a lot. And then so. But I may come back to that chapter. There's one thing I did want to mention too that was part of the Vulnerability Challenge before we go.
Absolutely.
So I did take it offline too. I really wanted to take it offline. So we created this thing called TVC Tribes. And I originally had this plan, this like vision that I wanted these tribes to pop up all over the world. And who knows, I may come back to it, but the tribe was basically, we met every week. I had a group of about 10 to 15 people and we met every week, and we just like started with a quick meditation, and then we started sharing openly and providing supportive and like loving feedback. And then we ended with a big group hug, and we did that every week for a year. And it was kind of this like mainstream vulnerability. Like, you don't need to be an alcoholic or have certain issue to be part of a support group. Or just, every human has stuff they need to deal with.
Yeah.
And so my vision was to have these tribes pop up everywhere, so that everyone would have would feel kind of okay to be themselves.
A support system.
Yeah. So that's the vision and the dream. And like I say, it's taken a bit of a backseat right now, but I'm sure who knows what will happen.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To hear more, check out our website, badassesintech.com, and join our community. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, so follow us and tune in next week. That about sums it up. I'm Summer Falgiano, and this is Badasses in Tech.